Shuklam Bharadaram Vishnum Shashivarnam Chaturbhujam Prasanavadhanam Dhyahet Sarvavighnopashantahe. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Mavet Vishavahai. Om Shanta Shanta Shantihi. Agajanana Patmarkam Gajanana Maharnisham Anekadantam Bhaktanam Ekadantam Upasmahe Shri Mahaganapatahe Namaha Gurave Sarva Lokanam Vishaje Bhavaroginam Nidahe Sarva Vidyanam Shri Dakshina Murtaye Namaha Asmad Guru Charanaravindaabhyam Namaha Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsa Chanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum Jnananandamaям devam nirmalasphटिकाकृतिम् आधारं सर्वविद्यानां श्रीहयग्रीवमुपास्महे श्रीहयग्रीवमूर्तये नमः सरस्वती नमस्तुभ्यं वरदे कामरूपिणि विद्यारम्भं करिष्यामि सिद्धिर्भवतु मे सदा श्रीमहासरस्वत्यै नमः उमा कोमलहस्ताब्ज सम्भावितललाटकम् हिरण्यकुण्डलं वन्दे कुमारं पुष्करस्रजं வெற்றிவேல் முருகனுக்கு ஹரஹரோஹரா லோகவீரியம் மகாபூஜ்யம் சர்வரக்ஷாகரம் விபும் பார்வதி ஹிருதயானந்தம் சாஸ்தாரம் பிரணமாம்யகம் சுவாமியே சரணமையப்பா வாகர்த்தாவிவ சம்பிரக்தௌ வாகர்த்த பிரதிபத்தயே जगदः पितरौ वन्दे पार्वती परमेश्वरौ श्री पार्वती परमेश्वराभ्यां नमः कोमलं पूजयन् वेणुं श्यामलोऽयं कुमारकः वेदवेद्यं परं ब्रह्म तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः अस्मद्गुरुचरणारविन्दाभ्यां नमः श्रीकृष्ण गोविन्द हरे मुरारे श्रीनाथ नारायण वासुदेव श्रीकृष्ण गोविन्द हरे मुरारे श्रीनाथ नारायण वासुदेव श्रीकृष्ण गोविन्द हरे मुरारे श्रीनाथ नारायण वासुदेव पीताम्बरं करविराजितचक्रशङ्खकौमोदकी सरसिजं करुणासमुद्रं राधासहायम् अतिसुन्दरमन्दहासं वातालयेशम् अनिशं हृदि भावयामि कृष्णो रक्षतु मां चराचरगुरुः कृष्णं नमस्ये सदा कृष्णेनैव सुरक्षितोऽहमसकृते कृष्णाय दत्तं मनः कृष्णादेव समुद्भवो मम विभो कृष्णस्य दासोऽस्म्यहं कृष्णे भक्तिरचञ्चलास्तु भगवन् हे कृष्ण तुभ्यं नमः श्रीगुरुवायूरप्पा शरणं नम्राणां सन्निधत्ते सततमपि पुरस्तैरणभ्यर्थितानपि अर्थान् कामानजस्रं वितरति परमानन्दसान्द्रां गतिं च इत्थं निःशेषलभ्यो निरवधिकफलः पारिजातो हरे त्वं क्षुद्रं तं शक्रवाटी द्रुममभिलषति व्यर्थमर्त्यव्रजोऽयं श्रीगुरुवायूरप्पा शरणं श्रीभट्टपादम् अनिशं हृदि भावयामि वंशी विभूषितकरात् नवनीरदाभात् पीताम्बरात् अरुणबिम्बफलादरोष्टात् पूर्णेन्दुसुन्दरमुखात् अरविन्दनेत्रात् कृष्णात् परं किमपि तत्त्वमहं न जाने കൈരണ്ടും കൂപ്പി ഞാൻ വീണ്ടുമീറക്കുന്നു നീരജലോചന നിന്നോടായി ഏതീനു മഞ്ഞനെ കുമ്പിടേണ്ടതോരു രീതിയിൽ നീ എന്നെ പാലിക്കെന്നായി കൃഷ്ണ ഹരേ ജയ കൃഷ്ണ ഹരേ ജയ Krishna Hare Jaya Krishna Hare. Good morning, everyone. Happy Krishna Janmashtami to all of you, celebrating either last night or tonight. People are doing different dates. Okay, so we'll start with Dashakam 17 and 18 today. So, like I said, Narayaneeyam has primarily three different types of Dashakams. There's one which is really talking about all the knowledge that is required, which we saw in the first about 10 Dashakams, right? And then it's the last 10 Dashakams also is going to be a lot around Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Bhakti Yoga. That's going to be the last. And that's one category. Then there is a second category, which is all the incarnations. So we saw in 12 and 13 about Varaha Avataram. Then in 14 and 15, we saw about Kapila Avataram, which is also an incarnation. 16, we saw about Narayaneyam Avataram. So this is the incarnation section. The third set of Dashakams are all about the great devotees. Now, why should we worry or talk about the great devotees? That's because anytime you mention a devotee's name, Bhagavan is automatically associated with it. There are so many great, we're going to see whole bunch of them here. Ajamila, Ambharisha, then, now we're going to see about Dhruva, we're going to see about Prahlada. So you all know about, Kuchela, very famous, right? The moment you talk about Kuchela, what do you remember? You remember that he was a great devotee of Krishna, right? You cannot separate Kuchela from Krishna. So that's why it is important to talk about those great devotees to see how they served Bhagavan and they become like kind of a guiding path, right? So 17 is about this one of these great devotees called as Dhruva. So 17 is Dhruva Charita Varnanam today. It's just one chapter, but good lot of content in there. All right, so let's see who we have for today. Bhuvana, you can be a student, and Lakshmi, you can be a student. Stanza 1. उत्तानपादनृपतेर्मनुनन्दनस्य जाया बभूव सुरुचिर्नितरामभीष्टा अन्या सुनीतिरिति भर्तुरनादृता सा त्वामेव नित्यमगतिः शरणं गता भूत्. So long time back, we saw about Swayambhuva Manu, who was the first Manu who came out of Brahma. And then that Swayambhuva Manu had 5 children. We said it was Uttanapada, Priyavrata, 2 male, and then 3 daughters, Devahuti, Akuti, and Prasuti. So Devahuti was the one who got married to Kardama, to whom Kapila was born. So Kapila Avataram, 14 and 15, we saw about that. And in the last chapter, we saw about Daksha getting married to Prasuti. So that was that Daksha Charitram little bit we saw. So the first male child, which is Uttanapada. So this is about his lineage and what is coming in that. So son of Swayambhuva Manu. So this Uttanapada, he had 2 wives, 2 queens. One's name was Suniti, other was Suruchi. So because he had 2, he has to have some favorite, right? So Suruchi was the most favorite queen of his, while the other one, Suniti, was always disregarded. He never liked her much. So she just happened to be a queen by name. And then, he never cared for her. He didn't love her as much. But Uttanapada was a great king as well, because he's in the lineage of Swayambhuva Manu. So he was a great personality as well. But somehow he had a favoritism towards Suruchi and not towards Suniti. So here Bhattacharya says, for anybody who others don't favor, who is the option? You are the only one. So for here, he says that's why Nityam, every day, Sharanam Gata Bhut. She was always dedicated to you. So, Suniti was always dedicated to Narayana because her husband was not caring about her and nobody cared or liked her. Uttanapada Nripater Manu Nandanasya, Jaya Bhabhuva Suruchir Nitaram Abhishta. If you want to break at that ma, Nitaram Abhishta. Anya Sunitiriti Bhartura Nadruta Sa, Twameva Nityam Agatihi, put a ish, Nityam Agatish, Sharanam Gata Bhut. Uttanapada Nripater Manunandhanasya Jaya Bhabhuva Suruchir Nitaram Abhishta Anya Sunitiriti Bharturanadrita Sa Twameva Nityamagate Sharanam Gata Bhut.
Uttanapada Nripater Manunandanasya Jaya Bhabhuva Suruchir Nitarama Bhishta Anya Sunitiriti Bhartura Nadrudasha Twameva Nityam Akadish Sharanam Gada Bhut. Do I repeat it twice?
2 times. Yeah, 2 times.
Uttanapada Nripater Manunandanasya Jaya Bhavuva Suruchir Nitarama Bhishta Anya Sunitiriti Bharturan Nadrudasa Twameva Nityamagadish Sharanam Gada Bhut.
Uttanapada-nripatir-manunandanasya Jaya babuva suruchir-nitaramabhishta Anya-sunitiriti पर्तु पर्तुरनातृदास त्वमेव नित्यमगतिश्चरणं गदाभूत
Fourth line, first word, Twameva.
त्वामेव उत्तानपादनृपतेर्मनुनन्दनस्य जाया बभूव सुरुचिर्निधरामभीष्टा अन्या सुनीतिरिति पर्तुरनातृदास त्वामेव नित्यमगतिश्चरणं गदाभूत.
Stanza 2. Anke pitu suruchiputrakam tam drishtva dhruvah kila suniti suto dhirokshyan achikshipe kila shishus sutaram suruchya dussantyaja khalu bhavat vimukairasuya. So these two queens, Suniti, Suruchi. So the Suruchi's son was Uttama. So Suruchi is the one who is the favorite of the king, Uttanapada. And Suniti, her son's name is Dhruva. So Dhruva was approximately 5 years old, and I think Uttama was slightly older because Uttama was the older son, and so he must have been few years older. So one day, this Uttanapada had the son Uttama sitting on his lap, and he was playing as a father. So Uttama was sitting on his lap. So Dhruva also felt, because he's a 5-year-old. So he said, I also want to come and sit in my father's lap. So he asks his father first, but his father kind of ends up disregarding him, not because he doesn't love him, but somehow he was distracted because of this other son Uttama, so he disregards him. So at that time, the Suruchi, who is the mother of Uttama, who the king loves the most, she comes and tells Dhruva that, what, you don't have the rights to sit on the lap of the king. And the reason she says is because you were not born from my womb. She says my son gets the priority because she must have been the first wife or whatever. So she says he gets the priority. So he gets to sit on the king's lap and you don't get to sit on the king's lap. Now, a 5-year-old boy doesn't understand, right? Right. So he says, no, what do I need to go sit on the king's lap? So she gives him a very good suggestion. She says, you go pray to that Bhagavan, you go pray to that Hari, Narayana, and get a boon from him. And you know what the boon is? He says that in the next birth of yours, you are born from my womb, because then you can be born from my womb and then you will get access to the king's throne and you can get access to the king's lap, right? So that is what she actually tells him, and then she actually drives him away from there, right? Now, this might have felt like a big insult, and we also go through a lot of such rejections in our life, but this ends up being the stimulus for Dhruva, right? Because she ends up being his first guru. Because what did she tell him? She told him, you go pray to the Bhagavan to be born again. So at least she gave him half a thing, saying that go pray to Bhagavan and then get the blessing, right? So Dhruva gets a little bit upset about it because he's 5 years old, right? So he then goes, Anke pituhu, put is pitus suruchi putrakam uttamam tam, comma, drishtva dhruvaha, put ih, dhruvah kila suniti sutodi rokshen achikshipe kila shishuhu, put is shishus sutaram suruchya, comma, dusantyaja khalu bhavat Vimukhair Asuya. I'm just breaking at the Ra if you want. Vimukhair Asuya. Anke pitus suruchi putrakam tam drishtva dhruvah kila suniti suto dhirokshen achikshipe kila shishus sutaram suruchya dusantyaja khalu bhavat vimukhair asuya.
अंके पितुः सुरुचिपुत्रकमुत्तमं तं दृष्ट्वा ध्रुवः किल सुनीतिसुतोदिरोक्षन् आसिक्षिपे किल शिशुः सुधरां सुरुच्या दुःसंध्यजा खलु भवद्विमुखै असूया.
And this third line left, achikshipe, cha sound, okay, and then Shishuhu, that Visarga becomes a is sound, Shishus.
Yes. Anke pitu suruchi putrakam tam drishtva dhruvah kila suniti surodhi rokshan achikshipe kila sishu sudaram suruchya dussandhyaja khalu bhavat vimukai asuya.
Second line, Suto the Rokshan, ta sound.
Sutodhi.
Yeah. And then again, third line in the Shishuhu, right? That becomes the is sound. Shishus.
Shishus.
Rajesh,
Huh?
Surishyaha va Surishya.
Suruchya. No visarga there. Just Suruchya.
Okay, book clerk.
अङ्केऽपि दुःसुरुचिपुत्रगमुत्तमं तं दृष्ट्वा ध्रुवः किल रोक्ष्यन् आचीक्षिपे किल शिशुः सुतारां सुरुच्या दुःसन्त्यजा खलु भवद्विमुखैरसूया अङ्केऽपि तत्सुरुचिपुत्रकमुत्तमं तं दृष्ट्वा ध्रुवः किल सुनीतिसुतोदिरोक्ष्यन् आचीक्षिपे किल सुषुत्सुतारां सृष्या दुःसन्त्यजा खलु भवद्विमुखैरसूया
Vimukair asuya. Yeah.
विमुखैरसूया.
The third line left. Shishus sutaram suruchya.
शिशुः सुतरां सुरुच्या. Come on.
Stanza 3. Tvanmohite pitari pashyati dharavashye duram durukti nihata sagato nijambham sapi swakarma gati santaranaya pumsam tvatpadameva sharanam shishabe shashamsam. So, first of all, Dhruva gets a little offended because that mother, says that you don't have access to the king's throne. But he gets even more upset because his father doesn't react. Uttanapada doesn't stop her by saying, no, it's okay. Dhruva is also my son. Let him also sit, right? He doesn't say anything. So he then runs to his mother and to Suniti, and then he cries, right? He's a 5-year-old, and then the other people who were there tell Suniti, this is what happened. Dhruva wanted to sit, the king said no, and Suruchi said this and all that. So Suniti says, that look, whatever you are getting is based on what you are destined to get. So if you're not destined to get something, you're not going to get it. So that is number one. So she says, maybe you are not destined to get the throne, so you didn't even get a chance to sit on your father's lap, number one. Number two, she says that anytime there is a problem, she says this, you have no choice. You can't go to your father because he doesn't care. So he says the only option for you to pray to Bhagavan. He says what the other mother of yours said is the truth. He says you have to go pray. That is the only option. So, but the only thing is she gives a proper advice. She says that you go pray so that good things happen to you. She doesn't pray that you get born in that other Suruchi's or womb again, like she said. She said you go pray because that is the only option, because that's what she's also going through. She says to him that when I myself have no value in your father's eyes, I am like a servant in this palace. So I myself have no value. So neither of both of us don't have a choice, and worshipping Bhagavan is the only option. So that is the Tvatpadameva Sharanam. She says that is the only option. So that's what she tells, and she also gives an example of how his grandfather, Dhruva's grandfather, Swayambhuva Manu, what did he do? He also prayed to Bhagavan before he started praying. His great grandfather, Brahma, what did he do? He also prayed to Bhagavan. So he says all your ancestors have also done the same thing. So that is the right thing. Twan mohite pitari pashyati daravashye, duram durukti nihataha, put is nihatas sa gato nijambham kapi swakarma gati santaranaya pumsam, tvat padameva sharanam shishabe shashamsa. Tvanmohite pitari pashyati dharavashye duram durukti nihatas sagato nijambham sapi swakarma gati santaranaya pumsam tvatpadameva sharanam shishabe shashamsa.
Tvanmohite pitari pashyati dharavasye duram durukti nihatassa gato nijambam स्थापि स्वकर्म गति संतरनाय पुंसां त्वत्पादमेव शरणं शिशवे शशंस त्वन्मोहिते पितरि पश्यति धारवश्ये दूरं दुरुक्ति निहतः स गतो निजाम्बां सापि स्वकर्म गति संतरनाय पुंसां त्वत्पादमेव शरणं शिशवे शशंस
त्वन्मोहिते पितरि पश्यति तारवश्ये दूरं दुरुक्ति निहतः सकतो निजाम्बां सापि स्वकर्मकति सन्तरणाय पुंसां त्वत्पादमेव चरणं शिशिवे शशंस
And last
दूर
line, sharanam shishave.
Okay, Sharanam. Okay. Tvanmohite pidari pashyati taravashye duram durukti nihatas tas sakato nijambam sapi swakarmagati santara naya pumsam tvatpadameva sharanam shishave shashamsa.
That's a good. आकर्ण्यसोऽपि भवदर्शननिश्चितात्मा मानी निरेत्य नगरात् किल पञ्चवर्षः सन्दृष्टनारदनिवेदितमन्त्रमार्गः त्वामारराध तपसा मधुकाननान्ते. So if it was any other ordinary 5-year-old boy, you just give a candy or something, he'll get distracted. But Dhruva was somehow very firm. He was like, no, he is like very determined about it. And his, Suniti said, Surichi said, go pray. Suniti is also saying that you have to go pray. So he says, okay, I am determined. So he then leaves his home when he's just Kila Pancha Varshaha. He was only 5 years old. And then he leaves. He has no idea where to go. He has no idea who to pray. He has no idea what to pray or how to pray. None of that he has any information. But he was very determined. So anytime you're very determined to go try to reach Bhagavan, you will land up with the appropriate guru. And for him, the greatest of guru, Narada, comes. Because Narada knows what a great personality he's going to be. So Narada first he has to test him. So he comes and says, where are you going? So he says, I'm just going, I'm just going to go see Bhagavan, right? I want to get his blessings. So Narada says that, you are a Kshatriya and you all have so much ego in you, right? Like somebody says one thing, suddenly you are like filled with ego. You want to leave your house, you want to go and you want to do all these things. He says it's not that easy. He says people go meditate for thousands and thousands of years to get access to Bhagavan. And you know nothing about it, right? You are just 5 years old and you can't stay without eating for one day. How can you do that? So Narada tries to kind of push him away from that. But Dhruva is very determined. He says, look, I'm only 5 years old. I don't even know anything about anything. So sometimes ignorance is bliss. You don't know what it is going to take. You don't know how hard it is going to be. So he kind of says, it doesn't matter to me how hard something is going to be because he doesn't know what hardship is, right? So he says, I'm just going to go give it a try. So Narada says, okay, this boy is determined. So the Narada then gives him the path. So he tells him you have to go to the banks of Yamuna and then there is Brihadvana, which is the current Vrindavan region. So he says you go and it's a Punya Sthalam. It's a very divine place. So he says there he goes and he tells him the path. And now it is not possible for any 5-year-old to do what Dhruva is going to do. That's because Dhruva in this birth he's going to be a great devotee. He's already born with it, right? So Narada tells him the path of the Ashtanga Yoga, which we saw in chapter of Dasakam 4. We know how hard it is to meditate and everything. Narada gives him that. And then he teaches him the Maha Mantram of Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, and he tells him to imagine a particular form of Bhagavan as he's meditating. Because Dhruva is a clean slate. You can tell him whatever you want, he's going to absorb, right? So Narada gives him those instructions very clearly upfront, and then Narada moves. So Dhruva now heads off to this forest, right, to meditate without knowing what it's going to take. Akarnyam sopi bhavadarchana nishchitatma, Mani niretya nagarat kila panchavarshaha sandrishta narada nivedita mantra margaha. Put a visarga comma. Next line, the is will go away. Twam araradha tapasa madhu kananante. Akarnyasopi bhavadarchana nishchitatma Mani niretya nagarat kila panchavarshaha Sandrishta narada nivedita mantra margaha Twamara radha tapasa madukhananante.
आकर्ण्यशोऽपि भवदर्शन निश्चितात्मा मानी निरेत्य नगरात् किल पञ्चवर्षः सन्दृष्ट नारद निवेदित मन्त्रमार्गः त्वाम् आरराध तपसा मधुकाननान्ते आकर्ण्यशोऽपि भवदर्शन निश्चितात्मा मानी निरेत्य नगरात् किल पञ्चवर्षः सन्तुष्ट नारद निवेदित मन्त्रमार्गः त्वाम् आरराध तपसा मधुकाननान्ते
आकर्ण्यसोऽपि निश्चितात्मा मानी निरेत्य नगरात् किल पञ्चवर्षः सन्तुष्टनारदनिवेदितमन्त्रमार्गः त्वामारराध तपसा मधुकाननान्ते आकर्ण्यसोऽपि भवदर्शननिश्चितात्मा मानी निरेत्य नगरात् किल पञ्चवर्षः सन्तुष्टनारदनिवेदितमन्त्रमार्गः त्वामारराध तपसा मधुकाननान्ते.
That's right. ताते विषण्ण हृदये नगरीं गतेन श्रीनारदेन परिसाद्वितचित्तवृत्तौ बालस्त्वदर्पितमनाः क्रमवर्धितेन निन्ये कठोरतपसा किल पञ्चमासान्. So now Narada knows Dhruva is on his way. The other challenge anytime you get on this path is all the other distractions which might come. So Narada has to make sure he's clearing the path. And one big distraction could potentially be Uttanapada himself, because he's going to get worried now that his son has left. So what will Uttanapada do? He will send somebody to bring his son back, which means he's not going to get to meet Bhagavan. So Narada, first thing he does is he goes and meets Uttanapada. So he first goes and meets Uttanapada and says that, why are you upset? Uttanapada says, my son has left, right? I don't know where he has gone. He's run away from the house. I have to go somehow bring him back. So Narada says, please don't do that, right? Because Narada knows what's going to happen. So he says, Uttanapada, he's on the right track. He's going to be one of the greatest of devotees and he's going to become the greatest of the kings. So he says, don't let him do what he wants to do and not to interfere with it and to mess up what Dhruva would have done otherwise, right? So with that, Narada makes sure that Uttanapada doesn't go and Dhruva's path is clear. And in the last, and I'm going to explain this more in detail in the next stanza, but it says, he does kathora tapasa. So it's one is to do intense penance. The second is to do intense penance, which increases with intensity every month. So he does it for 5 months. And we'll see what the penance is in the next stanza. Tate Vishanna Hridaye Nagarim Gatena, put a plus, Sri Naradena Parisantwita Chitta Brittau. So those two lines are together. Balas Twadarpita Manaha, put a H to join, Manah Krama Vardhitena, comma, Ninye Kathora Tapasa Kila Pancha Masan. Tate Vishanna Hridaye Nagarim Gatena Srinaradena Parisantwita Chitta Vrittau Balastvadarpita Manah Krama Vardhitena Ninye Kathora Tapasa Kila Panchamasan.
ताते विषण्ण हृदये नगरीं गणेन श्रीनारदेन परिसान्वित चित्तवृत्तौ बालस्त्वदर्पितमनः क्रमवर्धितेन निन्ये कठोर तपसा किल पञ्चमासान्
Bhuvana, first line, last word, Gatena.
ताते विषण्ण हृदये नगरीं गतेन श्रीनारदेन परिसान्त्वित चित्तवृत्तौ बालस्त्वदर्पितमनः क्रमवर्धितेन निन्ये कठोर तपसा किल पञ्चमासान्
ताते विषण्ण हृदये नगरीं गतेन श्रीनारदेन परिसान्त्वितचित्तवृत्तौ बालस्त्वदर्पितमनः क्रमवर्तितेन निन्ये कठार तपसा किल पञ्चमासान्.
Kathora, fourth line.
कठोर तादे विषण्ण हृदये नगरीं गतेन श्रीनारदेन
if you end that first line, I think you are like kind of a little bit adding Naradena to the first line in your tune. Right?
Okay.
ताते विषण्ण हृदये नगरीं गतेन श्रीनारदेन
Oh, sorry,
परिसान्त्वित
sorry.
चित्तवृत्तौ
ताते विषन्नहृदये नगरीं गतेन श्रीनारदेन परिसान्त्वितचित्तवृत्तौ बालस्त्वतर्पितमनः क्रमवर्तितेन निन्ये कठोरतपसा किल पञ्चमासान्.
6 तावत् तपोबलनिरुच्छ्वसिते दिगन्ते देवार्तितस्त्वमुदयत् करुणार्द्रचेताः त्वद्रूपचिद्रसनिलीनमतेः पुरस्तात् आविर्बभूवित विभो गरुडाधिरूढः. So Bhagavatam, it talks in very detailed about Dhruva's penance. So it talks in the first month of his penance. All he used to eat was he was used to just survive on whatever fruits and berries and everything that used to be there. And then he used to eat that also only every 3 days. Right? For us to do one day Ekadashi Vratam is so hard. By evening, we end up giving up, right? So here for every 3 days, he used to eat just fruits and berries, and that's how he spent the first month. And he's always praying. The rest of the time, he's praying, right? In the second month, the 3 days eating becomes every 6 days. He eats only every 6 days, and he used to just survive on the dry grass and leaves which were there, not even the fruits and berries. In the third month, he goes to every 9 days, and then he used to only survive on water. And the fourth day, he used to not even do that, and he used to only survive on air. So he used to only breathe. That was the only energy he used to get. No water, no grass, nothing. And in the fifth month, by the time he had reached the fifth month, he had reached so much potency that essentially, we spoke about that Mahat, which is a universal consciousness, which we are all connect to, but we are all still disconnected because we cannot connect to it. He essentially became one with the universal consciousness. So it was no difference between him and the supreme consciousness. He essentially became one, which meant when he stopped breathing, everybody else felt suffocated. So it was like he was literally in sync with the universe, right? And then he had even stopped breathing at that time. By the time he came to the fifth month, he was not even inhaling. He was just still. And he was standing on one leg. He was doing a tapas and he was just still. So when he completely stopped breathing, it kind of suffocated everybody. So the Devas and all went and said, one, I think it's time for you to go, because if you don't go and show up in front of Dhruva, we are all going to get, destroyed as well, right? So at the time, the Bhagavan has now, he knows what is in Dhruva's mind. Like I said, whatever form you imagine, that's the form Bhagavan is going to come in. So he knows what form Dhruva is imagining him in, which is what Narada has instructed him. And even if Bhagavan comes and stands in front of Dhruva, Dhruva is not going to open his eyes. So the only way to make him open his eyes is the form which is imagining in his mind has to disappear from his mind. So then he opens his eyes, because he's constantly in that meditation, right? He's not even breathing, he's in sync. So when that form suddenly goes away from his mind, he opens his eyes to see what happened. So at that time, he sees that form in front of him. So then he realizes, okay, it is that same Bhagavan who I've been meditating on, who is now standing in front of me. Tavat tapobhala niruchvasite. So that's the ich and the cha is coming. It also has a second ich. So two ich coming there. So niruchvasite digante, comma, devartitas twamudayat karunardra chetaha twadrupa chidrasa nilina matehe, put a f, mateh, purastat, put a it at the end of that line, comma. Next in the da will become a a. Avir bhabhuvita vibho garudadi rudaha. So you come seated on Garuda. Tavat tapobhala niruchvasite digante devartitastvamudayat karunardrachetaha twadrupa chidrasanilina mateh purastat avir bhabhuvita vibho garudadhirudaha.
तावत् तपोबल निरुच्वसिते दिगन्ते देवार्दिद स्वमुदयत् करुणार्द्रचेताः त्वद्रूपचित्रस निलीनमते
Nilina, yeah.
निलीनमते चित्रस निलीन मते पुरस्तात् आविर्
The
बभु
purastat is the end of that line. So, Twadrupa chidrasa nilina mate purastat.
त्वद्रूपचित्रस निलीनमते पुरस्ताद् आविर्बभूविद विभो गरुडाधिरूढ
Nudaha.
रूढः तावत् तपोबल निरुच्वसिते दिगन्ते देवार्तित स्त्वमुदयत् करुणार्द्रचेताः त्वद्रूपचित्र सनिल चित्रस
Chidrasa.
छिद्रस निलिनमते पुरस्तात् आविर्बभूविद विभो गरुडाधिरूढः
तावत् तपोबलनिरुश्वसिते दिगन्ते देवार्तितस्त्वमुदयत् करुणार्त्रचेताः त्वद्रूपचित्रस निलीनमतेः पुरस्तात् आविर्बभूविद विभो गरुडाधिरूढः तावत् तपोबलनिरुश्वसिते दिगन्ते देवार्तितस्त्वमुदयत् करुणार्त्रचेताः त्वद्रूपचित्रस निलीनमतेः पुरस्तात् आविर्बभूवित विभो गरुडाधिरूढः.
And so 7. त्वद्धर्शन प्रमद भारतरङ्गितं तं दृग्भ्यां निमग्नमिव रूपरसायने ते तुष्टूषमानमवगम्य कपोलदेशे संस्पृष्टवानसिदरेण तथाधरेण. So, and of course, Dhruva sees Bhagavan standing in front of him. He's in a state of ecstasy. And it says, Rupa Rasayanete. So, he's absorbing that nectar of the beauty of the Lord through his eyes, right? And then now he wants to see, when you meet somebody great, you really want to first go praise them or appreciate them. But you need to have the right words. Dhruva is 5 years old. He doesn't even know what to say. He's so wanting to say something, but he doesn't know what words to use or what words to say. So at that time, the Bhagavan then takes his conch, Shankam, and then puts it on his cheeks, because the Shank is supposed to represent the sound of the Vedas. So he then puts it on the cheek of Dhruva as a blessing, because he realizes that Dhruva wants to say something but doesn't know what to say. Twadharshana pramada bhara tarangitam tam, dribhyam nimagnamiva rupa rasayanete tushtushamanam avagamya. I'm just breaking at that ma. Tushtushamanam avagamya kapola deshe, samsprishtavanasi darena tatadarena. Twadharshana pramada bharatarangitam tam drigbyam nimagnamiva rupa rasayanete तुष्टूषमानमवगम्य कपोलदेशे संस्पृष्टवानसिदरेण तथादरेण.
त्वद्दर्शन प्रमद भारतरङ्गितं तं दृग्भ्यां निमग्नमिव रूप रसायने ते तुष्टूषमाणम् अवगम्य कपोलदेशे संपृष्टवानसि धरेण ददातरेण.
Fourth line, first word, samsprishtavanasi.
संस्पृष्टवानसि धरेण ददाधरेण
तथादरेण.
तथाधरेण. त्वद्दर्शन प्रमद भारतरङ्गितं तं दृग्भ्यां निमग्नमिव रूप रसायने ते तुष्टूषमाणम् अवगम्य कपोलदेशे संस्पृष्टवानसि धरेण तथाधरेण.
त्वत्तर्शनप्रमदपारतरङ्गितं तं दृग्भ्यां निमग्निमव रूपरसायने ते दुष्टूषमानम् अवगम्य कपोलदेशे संस्पृष्टवानसितरेण तथातरेण त्वद्दर्शनप्रमदपारतरङ्गितं तं तृप्यां निमग्निमवरूपरसायने ते दुष्टूषमानम् अवगम्य कपोलदेशे संस्पृष्टवानसितरेण तथातरेण.
That's it.
Rajesh, sorry,
Yeah.
one question. The third line, tushtusha manam and adukapram break and avagamya varda.
I mean, yeah, if you want to break at that mark, that will be easier to say it. So, tushtushamanam avagamya kapola deshe.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. That's it. Tavad vibhoda vimalam pranuvantamenam abhashatastam avagamya tadiya bhavam rajyam chiram samanubhuya bhajasva bhuyah sarvottaram dhruvapadam vinivrittihinam. Like it always happens, everybody starts with some desire in mind. Everybody has some material desire most of the times, and then they go pray. But then when you pray for a really long time, and then if you get to a point where Bhagavan is coming in front of you, you won't want any of the things that you started with. You will not want those material things, right? So, which is what Dhruva's case is also. When he started, he wanted to have a big kingdom, right? He essentially wanted a kingdom bigger than his father. That's what his original intent was. But the moment he saw Bhagavan, he doesn't want any of that stuff, right? Because the moment that touched the conch in his cheeks, he immediately got the supreme knowledge. He understood the full truth, everything that is to be known. And Dhruva does the beautiful stuti, not here in Bhagavatam it is there. He does a beautiful stuti to Bhagavan. And then Bhagavan says, I know what your desire is. We don't have to tell what our desires are, right? He absolutely knows. He says, I know what your desire is. So he says, after your father leaves, you are going to take over his kingdom. That is, and then you're going to rule the earth, right? In this current birth of yours. And then you are going to then get a region which is never going to get destroyed. He says the pole star around which all of these other planets revolve, right? Which is the center, right? So that pole star, Dhruva Nakshatram, you are going to rule that. And that never gets destroyed. Even at the end of the day of Brahma, when all the 14 worlds gets destroyed, that particular one does not get destroyed. It remains as a central anchor. So that doesn't get destroyed. So you are going to rule that, which means you're permanently going to be there. And then you will essentially, you're going to get liberated as well. And then you'll come and merge with me. So that is the blessings. Bhagavan says that you are going to get the greatest of the region that anybody can rule over. Nobody else has had a chance to rule that. And you are going to be the only one who gets to do that. Tavat vibhoda vimalam pranuvanta menam. Put a im. Pranuvanta menam, comma. Next line, the ma becomes a. Abhashatas tvam avagamya, this is breaking, tvam avagamya tadiya bhavam. Rajyam chiram samanubhuya bhajasva bhuyah, comma. Sarvottaram dhruva padam vinivritti hinam. So this is the reference of Dhruva getting to meet in 5 months. Like we saw in Kardama's case, he meditated for 10,000 years, right, before Bhagavan came in front of him. In Dasakam 19, we're going to see about the Prachetas who are going to do the same thing underwater. And then the time Bhatripad will reference this, saying that for Dhruva, you came in 5 months, but for everybody else, you take extra time, right? So it's because Dhruva was already very blessed soul, right? It was, so he just had, but again, he did very intense tapas, and he was only 5 years old, right? So, Tavad vibhoda vimalam pranuvantamhenam abhashatastam avagamya tadiya bhavam rajyam chiram samanubhuya bhajasva bhuyah sarvottaram dhruvapadam vinivrittihinam.
Just one question in the last syllable. Is it menam or metam?
Pranuvanta menam na.
Menam. Okay. Tavad vibodha vimalam pranuvanta menam abhasha tastvam avagamya tadiya bhavam rajyam chiram samano bhuya bhajasva bhuyah sarvottaram dhruvapadam vinivrittihinam. Tavad vibodha vimalam pranuvanta menam abhasha dastvam avagamya tadiya bhavam राज्यं चिरं समनुभूय भजस्व भूयः सर्वोत्तरं ध्रुवपदं विनिवृत्तिहीनम्
तावद्विबोधविमलं प्रणुवन्तमेनम् आभाषतास्त्वम् अवगम्य ततीयभावं राज्यं चिरं समनुभूय भजस्व भूयः सर्वोत्तरं ध्रुवपदं विनिवृत्तिहीनं तावद्विबोधविमलं प्रणुवन्तमेनम् आभाषतास्त्वम् अवगम्य ततीयभावं राज्यं चिरं समनुभूय भजस्व भूयः सर्वोत्तरं ध्रुवपदं विनिवृत्तिहीनम्
इत्यूचिषे त्वयि गते नृपनन्दनोऽसौ आनन्दिता किल जनो नगरीमुपेतः रेमे चिरं भवदनुग्रहपूर्णकामः ताते गते च वनमादृतराज्यभारः. So at that time, Dhruva, he himself feels that how ignorant I was, that, that I did not want to get because now he has a knowledge. So he says, if I had had this knowledge before, I would have meditated with the intention of getting liberated, not wanting a big kingdom. But anyway, that's how he started with. He says, but now he has the knowledge. So he then goes back to the kingdom. So anyway, Akila Jano, Nagari Anandita. So everybody is very happy. The Dhruva has finally come back, right? And then he lives then with Uttanapada. And then when Uttanapada's time comes to retire, when he goes to the forest, then Dhruva then gets over the kingdom, right? And Dhruva then rules the kingdom for a really long time. Ityuchishi Tvai Gate Nripanandanosau. So put a sau there. Nripanandano. So you'll have a sa. So put a Nripanandanosau, comma. Next line, the va will become a. Anandita khila jano nagari mupetah reme chiram bhavadanugraha purna kamaha visarga comma kamaha. Next line, if you have a is, that will go away. Tate gate cha vanamadrita rajya bharah. Ityuchishet. Sorry, go ahead.
One more time on the second line. Sorry.
And if you see, your first line is Nripananda no sau. Okay, it'll end with a sau, comma. Next line, if you have Vanandita, the va will become a. So Anandita kila jano.
Nagari mupeta.
Nagari mupeta. Reme chiram bhavadanugraha purna kamaha visarga, comma. And the fourth line, like is, if you have that, that will go away. Tate gate cha vanamadrita rajya bharah. Ityuchishe tvai gate nripanandanosau anandita khila jano nagari mupetah reme chiram bhavadanugraha purna kamah tate gate cha vanamadrita rajya bharah.
इत्युच्चिषि त्वयि गते नृपनन्दनोऽसौ आनन्दिता किल जनो नखरीमुपेतः रेमे चिरं भवदनुग्रहपूर्णकामः ताते गते च वनमादृतराज्यभारः इत्युचिषि त्वयि गते नृपनन्दनोऽसौ आनन्दिता किल जनो नगरीमुपेतः रेमे चिरं भवदनुग्रह पूर्णकामः ताते गते च वनमादृतराज्यभारः
इत्युषिषि त्वयि गते नृपनन्दनोऽसौ आनन्दिता किल जनो नगरीमुपेतेः रेमे चिरं भवदनुग्रह पूर्णकामः ताते गते च वनमातृत राज्यभारः.
Second line, last word, Nagari Mupet, Nagari Mupetah.
Oh, Mupetah. Okay, this is correct. इत्युषिषि त्वयि गते नृपनन्दनोऽसौ आनन्दिता किल जनो नगरीमुपेतः रेमे शिरं भवदनुग्रह पूर्णकामः ताते गते च वनमातृतराज्यपारः
यक्षेण देव निहते पुनरुत्तमेऽस्मिन् यक्षैः स युद्धनिरतो विरतो मनोक्त्या शान्त्या प्रसन्नहृदया धनदादुपेतात् त्वद्भक्तिमेव सुदृढाम् अवृणोन्महात्मा. So just a small story at the very end here. So Dhruva's the older brother, sorry, Uttama, who was there, they have all become old now. Dhruva is ruling the kingdom right now. So Uttama, once he goes hunting somewhere, and then, some yaksha then gets controlled. There's a battle that happens, and then his mother Suruchi also goes, and, she also dies trying to save her son. So Dhruva then goes and rescues Uttama at that point. So at that time, then this battle is going on, so at that time the Manu himself comes and says, stop the battle, right? Because he doesn't want anything to happen. Kubera or some story is there related to that. Anyway, the main point here is then they tell Dhruva not to have the battle. And then when they ask, what do you want? Dhruva says, I don't want anything except blessings, continued devotion to Bhagavan. That's all he asks for. So this is the wrap up of kind of what happens towards the end of Dhruva's life. Yakshena deva nihate punaruttamesmin, comma, yakshaihi, put a is, yakshais sa yuddha nirato virato manupya shantya prasanna hridayad. It's a double dha coming there. Hridayad dhanadhat upetat. So I'll repeat that again. First put a it at the end of that line. Shantya prasanna hridayat dhanadat upetat, comma. Next, and if you have two it, that will, one of them will go away. Tvat bhakti meva sudridham, breaking that ma, sudridham avrunon mahatma. Yakshena deva nihate punaruttamesmin yakshai sa yuddha nirato virato manupya shantya prasanna hridaya dhanadadupetat tvad-bhaktimeva sudridham avrunon mahatma.
यक्षेण देवनिहते पुनरुत्तमेऽस्मिन् यक्षैः स युद्धनिरतो विरतो मनुक्त्या शान्त्या प्रसन्न हृदयात् धनदात् उपेतात् त्वत्भक्तिमेव सुदृढाम् आवृणोन् महात्मा यक्षेण देवनिहते पुनरुत्तमेऽस्मिन् यक्षैः स युद्धनिरतो विरतो मनुक्त्या शान्त्या प्रसन्न हृदयात् धनदात् उपेतात् त्वद्भक्तिमेव सुदृढाम् आवृणोन् महात्मा
यक्षेण देवनिहते पुनरुत्तमेऽस्मिन् यक्षैः सयुत्तनिरतो विरतो मनूक्त्या शान्त्या प्रसन्नहृदयात् तनदात् उपेतात् त्वत्भक्तिमेव सुदृढाम् अवृणोन् महात्मा यक्षेण देवनिहते पुनरुत्तमेऽस्मिन् यक्षैः सयुत्तनिरतो विरतो मनुक्त्या शान्त्या प्रसन्नहृदयात् तनदात् उपेतात् त्वत्भक्तिमेव सुदृढाम् अवृणोन् महात्मा.
We'll just switch halfway. Vidya Medal, you can be a student, and Devi, you can be a student. Stanza 11. Ante bhavat purushanita vimanayato matra samam dhruvapade mudito yamaste evam swabhritya janapalana loladhistvam vatalayadipaниrundi mamamayoghan. So the end, Ante, at the very end, when the time now comes for Dhruva to leave, so he rules Earth for a really long time. When the time now comes for him to leave, he, along with his mother, are then both transported to the Dhruvaloka, where it says you still are there in Dhruvaloka, running over that Dhruvaloka region. So Guru Arapa, the one who protects, Swajana Palana, the one who always takes care of his devotees, please eradicate my ailments and my diseases as well. ante bhavat purusha neeta vimana yato, matra samam dhruvapade mudito yamaste evam swabhritya jana palana lola dhistvam, vatalayadhipa nirundi mamama yaugan. अन्ते भवत्पुरुषनीतविमानयातो मात्रा समं ध्रुवपदे मुदितो यमास्ते एवं स्वभृत्य जनपालनलोलधीस्त्वं वातालयाधिपनिरुन्धि ममामयौघान्.
Rajesh, just a quick question. After the second line, is it like a comma or a stop?
No, it's like I mean, end of every line, like Vimana Yato, Mudito Yamaste,
It's all
Leela Dhistvam, all stop at the end of it. Yeah.
अन्ते भवत्पुरुषनीतविमानयातो मात्रा समं ध्रुवपदे मुदितो यमास्ते एवं स्वभृत्वजनपालनलोलधीस्त्वं वातालयाधिपनिरुन्धि ममामयौघान्.
Third line, Swabhritya, ya sound, Britya.
Okay. Swabhritya. अन्ते भवत्पुरुषनीतविमानयातो मात्रा समं ध्रुवपदे मुदितो यमास्ते एवं स्वभृत्य जनपालनलोलधीस्त्वं वातालयाधिपनिरुन्धि ममामयौघान्.
अन्ते भवत्पुरुषनीतविमानयातो मात्रा समं ध्रुवपदे मुदितो यास्मते एवं स्वभृत्य जनपालनलोलधीस्त्वं वातालयाधिपनिरुन्धि ममामयौघान्. Say it again.
Mamamayaugan.
Mamayaugan.
And then the second line, last word, Muditoyamaste.
Muditoyamaste. Okay. Ande bhavat purushanita vimanayasto matra samam druvapade muditoyamaste. Amasto or te?
Yes, correct. No, te.
Evam swabhritya janapaladoladiswam vatalayadipanirundhi mamaya kaugan.
Mama Yogan. Sir, can you say the last word again?
Mamaya kaugan.
No, mama ma m sound.
Mama Yaukan.
Correct. Yeah, Mama Yogan.
So 3 mas, right?
Yeah, 3 mas there. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Shri Krishnaya Parabrahmane Namaha. Okay, Dashakam 18. Prithu Charita Varnanam. So the story about Prithu was one of the incarnations as well, partial incarnations. Jatasya Dhruvakula Eva Tunga Kirtehe Angasya Vyajani Savena Nama Yadosha Vyatita Matissa Rajavaryaha Twatpade Nihitamana Vanam Gato Bhute. So, lot of content in this first stanza. So, in the lineage of Dhruva, okay, so like you saw Uttanapada, Swayambhumanu, Brahma, Swayambhumanu, Uttanapada, Dhruva. In the lineage of Dhruva, there was a king called Anga, so maybe a few levels down from Dhruva's lineage. Very devoted person, very nice king. And, he was performing these yajnas. And, they say in those years, thousands of thousands or maybe several 100,000 years back, when they used to perform the yajnas, the demigods, you could know when the demigods are coming to accept the prasadam. So today we can't tell if somebody comes and is accepting ours or not, but they could tell. So nobody came. So this Anga was very worried, saying, I'm doing all the things in the right way. And, the people who are chanting it are also chanting it the right way, but still nothing is happening. So when they looked and see why nobody was coming, he says, you still have some, karma from the previous lives, which is preventing you from moving forward. He doesn't have a child either. He says that is because of some of the past life karmas that you have. So they say we'll redirect this yajna to call some Bhagavan to come to bless you with a child. So he then redirects that yajna, and then Bhagavan then comes and then blesses him with a child. He gets something. His wife then gets pregnant, and he gets a son. So this Anga, his son's name is Vena, Vena, Vena. So this Vena, first he gets very happy, saying, "Oh, finally I got a child," because he's been wanting a child for a really long time. Then he realizes that this Vena, although he's born in the lineage of Dhruva, was an extremely like it says death personified kind of a kid, right? So he's extremely atrocious. He does all bad things. So then this Anga is thinking, it's better to not have any children than to have a child who's so bad, right? He says, because now I feel so hard because I cannot see what atrocities the son is actually committing. So that goes for a while. Then he comes to a different realization. He says, actually, you know what? It is better to have a child who's atrocious than to have a good child. He says, because when you have a good child, you get so attached to that child that you don't want to leave your family and go do penance. But he says, my child is so atrocious right now. I don't want to stay with him anymore. I have no attachment. So he says it's a blessing. And with that, he then renounces his kingdom and everything. And then he goes into he goes into become a sannyasi. So essentially, he leaves the kingdom. So now there's no king right now. So that is kind of the things about the thought process that he's kind of going through, right? Jatasya dhruvakula eva tunga kirtehe. Put a visargan comma, kirtehe. Next line, the ra becomes a. Angasya vyajani sutaha. Put a is. Sutas sa vena nama yadhosha vyatita matihi. Put a is to join. Matis sa rajavaryaha. Visarga comma. Again, next line, if you have a is, that will go away. Tvatpade nihita mana vanam gato bhut. जातस्य ध्रुवकुल एव तुङ्गकीर्तेः अङ्गस्य व्यजनिसुतः सवेन नामा यद्दोषव्यतितमतिः स राजवर्यः त्वत्पादे निहितमनावनं गतो भूत्.
Sorry, Rajesh. Third line starts with a yaddosha.
Yaddosha, double da. Yaddosha.
So tha kadayadu.
Yeah, it's like it's yat dosha, two words. But then the it will become a da because the next word is also a da. So it becomes a double da because of that. So it's yad dosha.
So in our book it has tad dosha.
Oh, yeah. Okay, just change it to ya for consistency. It means the same thing, you know.
Jatasya dhruvakula eva tungakirtehe angasya vyajanitu savena nama yaddosha vyatitamatis sarajavaryaha tvatpade nihitamanavanam gato bhut. Jatasya dhruvakula eva tungakirtehe angasya vyajanitu savena nama yaddosha vyatitamatis sarajavaryaha tvatpade nihitamanavanam gato bhut.
जातस्य ध्रुवकुल एव तुङ्गकर्तेः अङ्गस्य व्यजनीसुतस्वेन नामा यद्दोष्य व्यदितमतिः स राज्यवर्याः त्वत्पादे निहितमनावनं गतोः.
First line, last word, tungakirtehe.
Tungakirtehe.
And then second line, and the sutaha will get a is. And then there is a sa next to it, right? So sutas sa vena nama.
Sutas sa vena nama. Jatasya dhruvakula eva tungakirtehe angasya vyajani sutassa vena nama yaddoshya vyaditasmadis sarajavaryeha त्वत्पादे निहितमना वनं गतो भूत.
The third line, first word, I'm hearing an extra ya sound. It's yad dosha.
यद्दोष
Yeah,
व्यदि
vyatita. So two. Papopekshiti talapala. Sorry, go ahead, yeah.
Rajesh, one question. Second line, tad dosha va, yat dosha va?
And change it. If you have tat, just change it to yat dosha, just to be consistent. It just means his dosham. That's what it is. So
Okay.
answer two. पापोपेक्षितितलपालनाय वेनः पौराध्यैरुपनिहितः कठोरवीर्यः सर्वेभ्यो निजबलमेव सम्प्रशंसन् भूचक्रे तव यजनान्ययं न्यरोत्सीत्. So now there's no king because Anga has left, right? So when there's no king, what happens is then everybody gets to be the king, right? There's atrocities all over. So there is like two divisions there. One which says you should install Vena as the king because he is the right lineage. Other says, but Vena itself creates so much atrocities. So they eventually one thing wins and they say, okay, we're going to install Vena as the king. So they then make Vena as the next king after Anga. But of course, he was anyway bad to begin with. So the moment he took over, more bad things start happening. Everybody had a free hand and things then become really bad, right, in the kingdom, and all bad things start to happen. And it talks about how, he stops all the yajnas and he harasses everybody and all of that stuff. Papopi kshiti tala palanaya venaha, pauradhyair upanihita. I'm just breaking that ru into ir and u. Pauradhyair upanihitaha is that visarga. Replace the visarga with a h sound. So upanihitah kathora viryah sarvebhyo nija balameva samprashamsan, bhuchakre tava yajananyayam nyarautsit. पापोपेक्षितितलपालनाय वेनः पौराध्यैरुपनिहितः कठोरवीर्यः सर्वेभ्यो निजबलमेव सम्प्रशंसन् भूचक्रे तव यजनान्ययं न्यरौत्सीत्.
I have a question. The second line, first word, is it pauradhyaihi or just pauradhyai?
So if you have a visarga there, if you have a pauradhyahi, it becomes a ir.
Okay.
So pauradhyair upanihita.
पापोऽपि क्षितितलपालनाय वेनः पौराद्यैरुपनिहितः कठोरवीर्यः सर्वेभ्यो निजबलमेव सम्प्रशंसन् भूचक्रे तव यजनान्मयं न्यरौत्सीत्.
यजनान्ययं
न्यरौत्सीत्. पापोऽपि क्षितितलपालनाय वेनः पौराद्यैरुपनिहितः कठोरवीर्यः सर्वेभ्यो निजबलमेव सम्प्रशंसन् भूचक्रे तव यजनान्ययं न्यरौत्सीत्.
पापोऽपि शिथिलपालनाय वेनः पौराद्यैरुपनिहिति कठोरवीर्यः सर्वेभ्यो निजबलमेव सम्प्रशंसन् भूचक्रे तव यजनान्यं न्यरौत्सीत्.
यजनान्ययं न्यरौत्सीत्.
यजनान्ययं न्यरौत्सीत्. पापोऽपि शिथिलपापनाय वेनः
Sorry, on the first line. Shiti tala palanaya.
पापोऽपि शिथितलपालनाय वेनः पौराद्यैरुपनिहिति कठोरवीर्यः सर्वेभ्यो निजबलमेव सम्प्रशंसन् भूचक्रे तव जननाययं न्यरौत्सीत्.
Second line nihi tah sound. I'm hearing a T sound there. Pauradhyair upanihitah.
Upanihitah.
Yeah, H sound. Upanihitah kathora.
Kadhora video.
Sansati. Samprapte hitakathanaya tapasaunkhe mattonyo bhuvanapatir na kaschaneti tvanninda vachana paro munishwaraistaihi shapagnau shalabada shamana yivenah. So this lot of sages were there. They all want the welfare of the people. So they will go and approach this Vena and say that, you as a king, it's one thing to be bad, second thing to be bad and have power. Because that's what it says is Katora Viryaha. So he's very strong and powerful and also extremely bad. So he says, it's very hard for all the people if you're like that. So they try to stop him. But he is, he's anyway determined. He says, no, I am the boss. You have to follow me. You should not worship all Narayana, all that. So he has all this conversation. So these sages, then it says Shapagnav. So this curse, essentially with words, they are able to, curse him, because of which then Vena dies. He says he dies as if like a moth just flies into a fire and gets burned. Similarly, Vena with the curse, he dies. Samprapte hita kathanaya tapa saughe, mattonyo bhuvanapatir na kaschaneti tvanninda vachana paro munishwaraistaihi, shapagnau shalabha dashamanayi venaha. Samprapte hitakathanaya tapasaunkhe mattonyo bhuvanapatir na kaschaneti tvanninda vachana paro munishwaraistaihi shapagnau shalabada shamanayi venaha.
सम्प्राप्ते हितकथनाय तापसौघे मत्तोऽन्यो भुवनपतिर्न कश्चनेति त्वन्निन्दावचनपरो मुनीश्वरैस्थैः शापाग्नौ शलभदशामनायिवेनः सम्प्राप्ते हितकथनाय तापसौघे मत्तोऽन्यो भुवनपतिर्न कश्चनेति त्वन्निन्दावचनपरो मुनीश्वरैस्थैः शापाग्नौ शलभदशामनायिवेनः
सम्प्राप्ते हितकथनाय तापसौखे मत्तोऽन्यो भुवनपतिर्न कश्चनेति त्वन्निन्दवचनपरो मुनीश्वरैस्तैः शापाग्नौ शलभदशामनाय वेदनाः.
Dashamanayi venaha.
दशामनायि वेनः सम्प्राप्ते हितकथनाय तापसौखे मत्तोऽन्यो भुवनपतिर्न कश्चनेति त्वन्निन्दवचनपरो मुनीश्वरैस्तैः शापाग्नौ शलभदशामनायि वेनः.
Answer for Tanhashat khalajanabirukairmunindraihi tanmatra chiraparirakshite tadhange tyaktage parimatitadato rudandat durdhande parimatite tumabirasihi. So this one is a little bit complicated. So anyway, the first part of it is they get rid of Vena. And the problem is now again they're back to square one of not having a king, right? So they realize that either way they're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place, right? If Vena was there, there's a problem. If Vena is not there, there's a problem. So they say somehow we have to do something. Now it talks about how Vena's mother was so attached to Vena that she was preserving his body, like the mummification of Egypt. She was preserving his body. Now it talks about how they churn his thighs of Vena, and then they extract all the negativity out which comes in the form of a person, and then whatever is left becomes another person or becomes two people. Now I don't know the technical thing. You could interpret it in one of two ways. One is somehow Vena is there, you then take the negativity out of him, and whatever positivity is left is becoming the incarnation. but then that cannot become a physical incarnation. It is only contextual, right? You remove the bad out, there is good remaining. It is very contextual. But it specifically mentions that they churned something out of his body, which was mummified, which was preserved, and then some bad things, bad person comes out, which is discarded, and then two beings come out of his body. So those two beings, one of them is the incarnation of Bhagavan, right? As Prithu. And the other one I'll talk about more of it in the next one. So you then come from avirasihi. You are then coming out of the body of Vena. So we don't know what happened or how they did it, but that's kind of the description that is given. Tannashat khalajana bhirukair munindraihi. Visargan comma munindraihi. Next line is goes away. Tanmatra chirapari rakshite tadange tyaktage. The next one is a long word. You first put a it at the end of that line and a comma. So it gets added to the end. Parimati tadatoru dandat. Cannot break that word. So parimati tadatoru dandat. It, comma. Next line, you have a double da, one of the das will go away. Dor dande parimatite twamavirasihi. So parimati means to churn. So this is somehow they churn his thighs, and then this evil thing comes out, which goes away, and then they churn his hands, and from there, two more beings come out. Tanhashat khalajana bhirukair munindraihi tanmatra chiraparirakshite tadange tyaktage parimati tadatorudandat dordande parimatite tvamavirasihi.
तन्नाशात् खलजनभीरुकैर्मुनीन्द्रैः तन्मात्रा चिरपरिरक्षिते तदङ्गे त्यक्ताघे परिमथितादतोरुदण्डात् दोर्दण्डे परिमथिते त्वमाविरासीः तन्नाशात् खलजनभीरुकैर्मुनीन्द्रैः तन्मात्रा चिरपरिरक्षिते तदङ्गे त्यक्ताघे परिमथिदादतोरुदण्डात् दोर्दण्डे परिमथिते त्वमाविरासीः
तन्नाशात् खलजनभीरुकैर्मुनीन्द्रैः तन्मात्रा चिरपरिरक्षिते तदङ्गे त्यक्ताघे परिमथितादतोरुदण्डात् दोर्दण्डे परिमथिते त्वमाविरासीः तन्नाशात् खलजनभीरुकैर्मुनीन्द्रैः तन्मात्रा चिरपरिरक्षिते तदङ्गे त्यक्ताघे परिमथितादतोरुदण्डात् दोर्दण्डे परिमथिते त्वमाविरासीः.
So avirasi just means you manifested yourself. It's just not like going through the regular birth, right? You just manifested yourself in the form of Prithu. So your incarnation as Prithu. Stanza 5. Vikyatah Prithuriti tapasopadishtaihi sutadhyaih parinuta bhavi bhuri viryah venartya kabalita sampadam dharitrim akrantam nijadhanusha samamakarshih. So the two beings who come, right? One of them is Bhagavan's incarnation, partial incarnation. Like I said, each of the incarnation has different potencies and different levels for different purposes, right? So this one is a partial incarnation as Prithu, and then the other female form, which is called Archi. So that is an incarnation of Mahalakshmi as Archi to accompany Prithu. So I'll ask one question to all of you. Little bit of a tough question, but you should be able to trace back if you walk back logically. How is Prithu, the word, connected to the word Parthasarathi? You should walk back from Parthasarathi. Maybe then you'll get, that's the hint I can give.
Can I?
Yeah, go ahead. Anybody. Yeah.
So Krishna was the charioteer of Arjuna, was the son of Pritha, who is Kunti, who is a descendant of Prithu.
Yes, absolutely. That's exactly right. So Kunti, this Prithu, who's born here, amazing woman. So the Prithu who's born here, in his clan, much later, was the Vrishni clan. And in the Vrishni clan, Basudeva and Kunti were born in the clan of the Vrishnis much later. So Kunti was called Pritha. Because Kunti was called Pritha, her son was called Partha. And then because Krishna was a charioteer of Partha, he's called as Parthasarathi. Right? That is a kind of little bit of a connection to the Prithu thing here. So anyway, so that is not here. I'm just kind of asking that question, but it's not in this thing. So anyway, so here this Prithu is here. So now when Prithu is incarnated, right, like we said, anytime like Narayaneeyam instant also Brahma, all of them come, demigods come, right? And then they can see in the hands and the legs of the person who is born, the symbols are visible to them to say that, yes, this is incarnation of Bhagavan. So they know this is one of the incarnation. Now, in the time of Vena, because things were not being done properly, the entire earth and the entire regions was all in shambles, which means that nothing was getting produced, right? Agriculture was not happening properly, vegetables, none of that cultivation, none of that was happening. So what Prithu establishes, right, is the first establishment of kind of what you call proper cultivation. So he teaches, how you have to leverage earth, right? And in the next stanza, I'm going to a little bit jump to the next stanza. The next stanza, earth is compared to like the cow Kamadhenu, and says, you can not that earth is Kamadhenu, but he's kind of giving comparison, saying to the Kamadhenu, you can go and ask whatever you want, and it will give you in return. So he says, earth is like that. Everything you want is available in this earth. You just have to take care of it, and then you can extract things from that, right? So that is what this Prithu is really doing, is establishing the right way to do things so that you can cultivate things, agriculture, all of that stuff. So all the right things can be extracted so things can get back to normalcy. Vikyatah, put if Vikyatah Prithuriti tapasopadishtaihi, comma, Sutadhyaihi, put a F, Sutadhyaif Parinuta Bhavi Bhuri Viryah Benartya Kabalita Sampadam Dharitrim, put a Im, comma, Dharitrim. Next line, the Ma becomes A. Akrantam Nija Dhanusha Samamakarshihi.
ராஜேஷ் அந்த சாரி அந்த பிருத்து சொன்னேன்ல, அந்த மகாலட்சுமியோட பேர் என்ன சொன்னேன்?
Archi. ARCI.
Okay.
Vikhyatah Prithuriti tapasopadishtaihi Sutadhyaif Parinuta Bhavi Bhuri Viryah Venartya Kabalita Sampadam Dharitrim Akrantam Nija Dhanusha Samamakarshihi.
Vikhyatah Prithuriti tapasopadishtaihi Sutadhyaif Parinuta Bhavi Bhuri Viryaha Venatya Kabalita Sampadam Dharitrim Akrantam Nijadhanusha Samamakarshihi.
Fourth line, first word, Akrantam.
Vikhyatah Prithuriti tapasopadishtaihi Sutadhyaif Parinuta Bhavi Bhuri Viryaha Venartya Kabalita Sampadam Dharitrim Akrantam Nijadhanusha Samamakarshihi.
विख्यातात् प्रतिरुति तापदसोपदिष्टैः सूताद्यै परिणुतभाविभूरिवीर्याः वेनार्त्यै कबलितं सम्बतं दरित्रीम् आक्रान्तां निजधनुषा समामकार्षिः
Akarshīhi. Samamakarshīhi.
समामकार्षिः
And the third line, first word, Venartya.
वेनार्त्या विख्यातात् ओके
Vikyatah. Sorry, Vikyatah Praturiti.
विख्यातत् प्रतिरुति तापसोपदिष्टैः सुताद्यै परिणुत भाविभूरिवीर्याः वेनार्त्यै कबलित सम्बतं दरित्रीम् आक्रान्तां निजधनुषा समामकार्षिः
Samamakarshīhi.
समामकार्षिः
And the second line, Bhuri Viryaha.
परिणुत भाविभूरिवीर्यः.
But we'll just stop here at fine. Shri Krishnaya Parabrahmane Namaha. सान्ध्रानन्दावबोधात्मकमनुपमितं कालदेशावदिभ्यां निर्मुक्तं नित्यमुक्तं निगमशतसहस्रेण निर्भास्यमानम् अस्पष्टं दृष्टमात्रे पुनरुरुपुरुषार्थात्मकं ब्रह्मतत्त्वं तत्तावद्भाति साक्षात् गुरुपवनपुरे हन्त भाग्यं जनानां कायेन वाचा मनसेन्द्रियैर्वा बुद्ध्यात्मना वा प्रकृते स्वभावात् करोमि यत्य सकलं परस्मै नारायणायेति समर्पयामि. Thank you everyone. See you all tomorrow. I think most of you are coming tomorrow.
Yes.
So I'll put a message in the group right now anyway. So we'll have coffee, tea at 8:30 and then we'll start at 9 o'clock tomorrow. Okay.
Okay, Rajesh. Thank you.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you everyone. Bye.
Rajesh, it starts at 9 o'clock.
Yeah, 9 o'clock. Yeah. I'm just going to message in the groups right now. Yeah. Okay.
Very
Bye.
Bye. Bye.